Hi, my name is Steve Flanders, and I'm a Senior Solutions Architect on the vCneter Log Insight product team at VMware. I'd like to talk to you about query building in vCneter Log Insight. Before I do, a quick introduction. vCneter Log Insight is capable of managing the unstructured data in your data center. It complements other cloud management tools such as vCneter Operations that handles the structured data within your data center. Log Insight is capable of aggregating all the log messages within your environment and providing an HTML5 interface to query against the events that are being received. You can create custom dashboards, alerts, extracted fields, and saved queries. And with that, let's talk about query building. Queries are the primary way to interface with the vCneter Log Insight product through the HTML5 interface. Queries are created on the interactive analytics page and are used in all aspects of using Log Insight. The goal here is to help you understand what comprises a query, how to do certain pattern matching, including regular expressions, and then best practices, including performance considerations when generating queries in Log Insight. So first up, we have the interactive analytics page. And this has a variety of different options that are available to the user. Actually, it has a lot of options. You can see the overview chart, your actual events, the query building box, and several other attributes that are available to the user of the system. But I just want to focus on one primary area, query building. And the easiest way, or the common place to start, is through the search box. But even with the search box, there are several other areas of Log Insight that are necessary on the interactive analytics page to effectively build your queries. And I'll touch on some of these in a bit. With that, I'd like to switch to a live demo of actually using the product and explain some of the considerations for using the search bar and constraints. So here we have the interactive analytics page again, and we're going to start to construct a query. And one of the most common queries that you'll probably build in Log Insight is storage related. We often find that storage is the most common problem in an environment. So you can actually perform complete or full text keyword searches. There's no need to learn a proprietary query language. Instead, you naturally search what would occur in the event itself. So if we're looking for a potential storage issue, we may look for things like SCSI performance deteriorated events, or just SCSI deteriorated events. Let's go ahead and start doing that. So let's click into the search bar here and start looking for SCSI deteriorated. And you'll notice a few things. As I start typing, the results are auto-populated for me, along with an approximation on the number of results that will be returned. Let's go ahead and select deteriorated, which should return approximately 79,000 events. And we'll run the query. But you'll notice that we actually get no results. And the reason for that is because of the time range that is specified in the query. By default, this is the latest 5 minutes of data. The idea is to refine your search to only the subset of events that you actually care about, because the more events that you need to query over require you to actually seek that data off of disk and then CPU time to actually compute the results of your query. But you can extend this time range as necessary. Let's go ahead and extend the time range so we can get some results for this particular query. We'll look at the latest 24 hours of data. Now you notice that we get some results. And what we've searched for in the search bar is actually highlighted in the event itself. You'll notice that we have both SCSI and deteriorated in every single event that's returned. That's because this query literally means search for SCSI and deteriorated. Every keyword that's separated by space is a logical AND operation on the search bar. We can prove this by actually switching the query around. Let's look for deteriorated SCSI instead of SCSI deteriorated and see if we get the same number of results. Go ahead and modify the query here, run it again, and you'll see that we do in fact get the same results and they're highlighted exactly the same way. Next up, let's try searching for a subset of a word. So let's look for deteriorate instead of deteriorated. Now you'll notice that deteriorate does not show up in the results list. That's because that event does not exist in this system, but deteriorated does. So what happens when I actually run this query? What you'll notice is that we get no results. Why? The reason is because Log Insight performs complete or full text keyword indexes. This makes it extremely fast to query over the data without having to look at the raw compressed events that are coming into the system. But it only works for complete or full text keywords. So what happens if you want to search for something like deteriorate and deteriorated, both words at the same time, or some combination of a word? Well, Log Insight supports Glob Operations. And there's two different types of Glob Operations today. There's question mark, which means exactly one character. And then there's wildcard, or the asterisk symbol, which means 0 or more characters. Let's go ahead and demonstrate that. So let's go ahead and search for deteriorated, and we'll add a star at the end, 0 or more characters. You'll see that we do in fact get a returned query with the word deteriorated. Let's try to replace the D with a question mark, exactly one character. Again, same number of results. And we can mix and mingle multiple Glob operations. We can have question mark and star, and it doesn't have to be at the end of a particular keyword. As you can see, we replaced the E. We're now using multiple question marks. All of this is allowed. The only exception to Glob operations today on the search bar is that you cannot prefix a query with a Glob operation. If you do, Log Insight will tell you that that is an invalid query. Let's go ahead and look for star iterated, trying to replace the D. Log Insight clearly tells us that this query is not allowed. Next up, I want to show you how to actually construct a query with a phrase. Phrases would be done with double quotations. So let's look for SCSI and the phrase performance has deteriorated. We'll wrap the phrase in double quotations. And you'll notice in the results list, we now have the entire phrase, including the spaces between performance has and has deteriorated highlighted. But if we want to confirm that this is working as expected, let's try to remove the word has and see if we get any results. So now we're looking for literally SCSI and the phrase performance deteriorated. We have no results because its performance has deteriorated. What happens if you change the double quotations with single quotations? Double quotations would match a phrase. Single quotations actually does return results. But if you notice, these results are different than with the double quotations. We no longer have the spaces between performance has and has deteriorated being highlighted. That's because this phrase literally means search for SCSI and performance and has and deteriorated. But why are the single quotes ignored? That's because special characters are not interpreted on the search bar. We allow Glob operations, but the actual keyword indexes are based on alphanumeric, hyphen, and underscore matches. All other special characters are ignored. If you'd like to actually query for special characters, you would use a regular expression on the constraint line. We'll demonstrate that here in just a couple minutes. If we want to confirm this behavior, again, let's remove the word has, and we should in fact receive results, as it is not a phrase, and we do. And we can also remove the single quotations and confirm that we get the same number of results, and in fact, we do. Next up, I want to show you constraints. Constraints are a way of further refining the results that are returned in a particular query. They can be used in addition to or instead of the search bar. And a constraint is made up of 3 different attributes. The first dropdown is fields. This defaults to text, but it can be any defined field in Log Insight. Fields could be from the static parser, things like metadata in the syslog RFC, like priority, facility, source, hostname, and app name. It could be defined fields in a content pack, such as the vSphere content pack. Or it could be a user-defined extracted field, what we refer to as custom fields. The second dropdown is used as the operation, what you want to perform against the field that you selected. If this is numeric fields, then you have things like greater than, less than, and equal. Else, you have things like contains, does not contain, starts with, does not start with. And then finally, you have multiple values separated by commas. Let's demonstrate what we try to do in the search bar, this time with constraints. Let's start with the phrase. Let's look for text contains and the phrase performance has deteriorated. In this particular example, we will not use double quotations. Let's see what we get for results. And we do in fact match the phrase. The reason for this is because the search bar separates values by space, but constraints separate values by comma. So whether we add the double quotations or not, everything separated by a comma is treated as one unique value. Thus we match the phrase. We can go ahead and add double quotations just to confirm that we get the same results, and we will, meaning that the double quotations are in fact ignored in this particular example. Next up, let's try to do the Glob operations. Let's look for deteriorate. We'll add a glob operation to the end, and you'll see that it works exactly the same as it does on the search bar. Now, I won't actually go ahead and build out all the additional glob operations that we test on the search bar, but rest assured it works exactly the same as the search bar. And back to the first example we had. How do you search for SCSI and deteriorated? Let's go ahead and search for SCSI space deteriorated. No results. The reason for that, as you might remember, is because values are separated by comma. So this literally means search for the phrase SCSI deteriorated, and that event does not exist in this system. So let's go ahead and separate these two words with comma, the delimiter on a constraint line. And you'll see that we get results, but we get results for events that contain either SCSI or deteriorated, but not both like on the search bar. The reason for that is because separations by space on the search bar are logical AND operations, but separations by comma on a constraint are logical OR operations. So if you want to perform a logical AND using constraints, you define multiple constraints. Let's add a second constraint, and let's move deteriorated to that second constraint. Removing deteriorated, adding a second constraint for text contains, and adding deteriorated back in. And now we have an equivalent query via constraints that we had on the search bar. Not as easy to read, so we typically recommend using the search bar instead of this equivalent constraint query. Now, you can mix and mingle different types of text and fields or other fields in the system as well in your constraints. Demonstrating this with pure text fields, let's look for performance has and deteriorated or improved. Now, what's nice about constraints is you have the ability to match what we call all logical AND operations or any logical OR operations. So again, you can mix and mingle your query depending on the requirements of how you're trying to refine your results. And Log Insight will keep state for you. As you delete the constraint, it still will keep the match any operation that we selected, so when we add the next constraint back, we're back in our original state. One final thing I want to demonstrate is regular expressions. Regular expressions can be defined on a constraint line. They cannot be defined on the search bar. You go ahead and construct a regular expression using special characters. Log Insight will notify you if you have a syntax error. For example, the open square bracket is actually used as part of a regular expression syntax. So Log Insight notifies you that you either need to complete the syntax, close the open square bracket, or escape the special character, meaning that you want to search for the literal open square bracket. Let's build out this example. Let's look for a literal open square bracket, one or more word characters, and a closed square bracket, a valid regular expression. Now, let's go ahead and run this query and see approximately how long it takes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Approximately 5 seconds. So why did I count that out? Well, for the time range that we specified, the latest 24 hours worth of data, it took approximately 5 seconds to return a regular expression query. Let's actually reduce the time range to the latest 5 minutes and see how long the query takes. 1, 1. Much faster. The reason for that is because we reduced the time range, thus reducing the number of events that we need to query over, and because regular expressions can be extremely expensive, we reduce the number of returned values that we need to apply a regular expression to. So that's just a demonstration of some of the possible query building that you can perform in Log Insight. So in conclusion here, in general, cases are insensitive. Doesn't matter if it's capital or not, the insensitive search will work. We perform complete keyword matching as we build indexes based on the complete keywords during ingestion time. Special characters and queries would happen via regular expressions only, which are part of constraints and not part of the search bar. And we have glob operations available to enhance queries even further and define subsets of complete keyword matches. On the search bar, keywords separated by space are logical AND operations. You can use double quotations to match phrases, and there are no regular expressions. Constraints allow for field operations. I demonstrated mostly text space, but other fields can be used as well. Fields are used as a way to add structure to your unstructured events. Multiple constraints can be logically AND or logically OR queried, and Java-based regular expressions are available as needed. So I encourage you to go ahead and download vCneter Log Insight from the VMware Log Insight product page at vmware.com/go/try-vmware. Or take a look at our new 1.5 beta, which was released this week, available at loginsight.vmware.com. Thank you.